So for what I hope is an obvious reason, I thought I would go ahead and take a look at and provide some commentary on this thread that was posted to Boardgamegeek War Games section under forums, under the general subsection. Subject is what makes a particular war game title a timeless one. So I guess I'll go ahead and read Eric W.'s initial post, and I'll just read it through and then comment. So MJ Lyons, also known as Captain Lion Day Sachs at BGG, posted his advertisement for next week's Wargame Chat. So that, of course, is me, and the advertisement was for yesterday's video chat, which happened as usual every Saturday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we did talk, actually we stayed on topic probably better than we ever have, talking about timeless war games and different aspects of that idea. So Eric W. continues, he asks the questions: what makes a game timeless for you? What sets them apart from other games? What are your timeless games? So I am throwing it out there. Maybe you'll join in the Wargame Chat, but even if you don't, toss out your opinions, ideas, proclamations, whatever. Okay, so first of all, you should always know, to the extent possible, who you're listening to and who you're reading. So Eric W. is many different things, and among those, he is an excellent writer. I can only assume he just has a natural talent far beyond mere mortals. Very good writer. So, I mean, I know that he's a very good writer. So when he puts timeless in quotes in the subject, that is not, I doubt that he uses quotes there incorrectly. As a matter of fact, I assume he uses them correctly. And so you should key in on that. And I think that what is meant there is we're not talking literally timeless, okay? So we're not talking timeless literally. So I think at this point, I want to actually take a look at the first word that we should take a look at. Okay, the word timeless has two aspects to its definition: not affected, so not changed, by the passage of time or changes in fashion. So first of all, this is or, not and. So if either of these apply, we can look for some aspect of timelessness, okay? So not affected or changed by the passage of time, of course, any physical war game, at least, is going to be affected by the passage of time. This is obvious. We're not talking literally timeless. However, the second half of the definition, I think, does apply. I believe it will apply as we go through this. So changes in fashion, not affected, not changed by changes in fashion. Fashion, what is popular, what is considered proper, what is considered better at any particular time, what is considered desirable at any particular time. So I think if there are timeless war games, I want to look for games that are or appear to not be affected over the passage of over time by changes in wargaming fashion. Okay, so, and also another way to look at timeless is to look at and just consider synonyms. Lasting, you could certainly talk about lasting war games, right? Enduring, yes. Classic, we're actually going to take another look. We're actually going to take a deeper look at that word, classic. Ageless, permanent. Unfailing, unchanging, unvarying, unending, undying. Okay. Okay, interestingly, and I, could not have predicted it in last night's video chat, which is good. That's why I so prefer the video chat to any other format, is because you can get real dialogue going. And I was really surprised at the prominence that the word classic was taking on in the discussion. We were returning to it again and again. Classic game. This is a classic game. This is not a classic game. But classic is not a synonym at all for timeless. They're actually distinct. So let's take a look, again, a closer look at the actual word. So judged over a period of time to be of the highest quality and an outstanding example of its kind. This is, by the way, we already looked at timeless. I think that timeless, again, to reiterate, I think timeless with respect to war games only applies in that half of the definition of not being influenced by fashion. Classic, on the other hand, talking about classic war games, this definition just hits the bullseye. Judged means that people's assessments, judgments, is what's going on, is what's key over time. So it has to be the judgment of people who over time, so lots of people over time who have experience with whatever we're talking about, so the war games, and over time many people come to the judgment that such and such a war game is an example of a very high quality and or an outstanding example of its kind. So, an East Front operational level game, a World War II squad level tactical game, or whatever the kind is, right? So this, like I said, this hits the bullseye when talking about war games. Again, look at definitive, authoritative. This is very useful. But I still want to point out, this is actually distinct from timeless. But I think it's a very closely related idea. Just for the sake of the discussion, I also want to take a look at dated. Dated's really, really just straightforward, like old-fashioned. So of or like something considered old. It's kind of, an old war game is, well, kind of by definition going to be dated. That doesn't mean that an old war game has to be dated, however. An old war game could not be old-fashioned. But this quality is just kind of, separate, right? A classic war game may be dated, may not be dated. I'm not sure whether a war game is dated or not has any bearing on whether it's a classic or not. It just seems distinct. Now, so classic and dated, I think, seem to be independent of each other. However, dated and timeless do seem to possibly conflict. What I mean by that, I think if a game is dated, it's probably not timeless, but I'm leaving open the possibility that, I'm going to leave open the possibility that a game can be considered dated and yet still timeless, because of that second part of the definition of timeless, not being affected by fashion. Well, I'll leave open that possibility. So very important, having looked at our key definitions, now we can jump into the commentary with some bearings, right? And this is a great example that the number one post right after Eric W.'s original post, is a huge picture of Panzerblitz. This is perfect. Let me say up front, I never played Panzerblitz, don't own it. So I'm a distant observer of this game. Now, just from my again distant vantage point, seems very dated to me. Is it a classic? Is it considered high quality or an outstanding example of its kind? I believe so. I understand people may never want to play it again. I guess that would be very understandable. If you played it a lot, that you would never want to play it again. Because you never want to play it again, does that mean it's a bad game? I find that hard to believe. Is it an outstanding example? an example of a very high quality product of its kind? I think yes. I think Panzer Blitz qualifies as a classic war game. Now, is it timeless? Is this, now this is even most key. This is really the original discussion, right? Timeless war games, because timeless, I think it's easier to determine dated. I think it's easier to determine classic. I actually think it's hardest to determine timeless. So that's why I'm kind of working bottom up, right? And timeless, unaffected by changing fashion. I actually think that, well, first of all, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that Panzer Blitz could go either way. I mean, there are convincing arguments on either side. I think that, however, I think I am going to come down on the side that says, while a classic war game, I don't actually think it's timeless. I think that interest in the game, willingness to actually play the game, especially by new players, this game has been affected by changing fashion. Yeah, but I think clearly a classic war game. So Eric W. comes back to elaborate and begin providing his own response to the original questions. A difficult question for him to answer. He interprets timeless to mean that even after many years have gone by, he still feels that he could play that particular game at the drop of a hat and not feel like it's dated, and there's the word, in any way. There's not many games that qualify in this, truth be told, at least not for him. So he mentions Squad Leader. He says, don't get me wrong, I loved this game for years. By the way, Squad Leader, probably a classic war game. But these days, there are things that, that feel too clunky about it, particularly how defensive fire makes moving enemy units back up to those track markers. Okay, so well, probably dated. I think what Eric W is trying to say is dated. I would say probably Squad Leader is a classic war game, and Eric W is saying not for him a timeless war game. All right, so Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader. Eric W writes, thought these were great in their day as well, but then the shine wore off. Still have lots of nostalgia for them, but timeless? No. Interesting, nostalgia came up as a pretty significant theme in the video chat last night as well. I might set up a scenario, get through a turn or two, then pack these away as I remember why I don't play them anymore. So I think that again qualifies for being affected by changing fashion. Players just aren't willing to look past, well, maybe not willing to look past the dated parts. Yeah, something like that. So interestingly, I'm going to go on, especially since I've never played Panzer Blitz. So this is interesting. Going on, Eric W writes, so here's the truly timeless games that I mentioned in the earlier video where I advertised yesterday's video chat. So he says, mentioned Star Force Alpha Centauri. This is actually the original game where in an earlier discussion, Eric W mentioned to me, he was talking about Star Force Alpha Centauri and he used the term timeless, which is what originally made me think of the video chat topic. So still feels as fresh today as it was when it came out. Why is it timeless? The backstory had a decent amount of depth, creatively sidestepped the physics problems, such as a sci-fi game easily might fall into, and was a hell of a tense situation for both players to boot. Despite the simultaneous movement plots, there weren't too many pieces on the map, so that didn't seem to be a problem. The 3D movement issues on both the strategic map and mini light tactical display were easily handled. Positively dripped narrative and could be played as a two-player or multiplayer game. Practically begged for homegrown scenarios. Never got tired of it ever. That seems to be a great kind of in a snapshot. The idea of timeless, and again, I would say this is why timeless seems to contradict with dated. So it certainly doesn't feel dated. A game that's timeless probably doesn't feel dated. Still interesting. Now, is a timeless game a classic game? See, I'm not sure that's automatic. But anyways, Star Force Alpha Centauri, Eric W. explains very well why he considers that a timeless war game. Russian campaign, how many editions have there been? 4, no surprise why. Now, I think this is important, especially, this came out in the video to discuss the video chat last night. Games that go through multiple editions, that is an indication of at least a candidate for a timeless war game. So that is a clue to look for. So it elegantly solved all that was wrong with its Eastern Front board game predecessors, and the sudden death victory conditions kept play from dragging on too long when the Germans didn't win, so on and so forth. I think this is pointing to also classic. Part of the definition that says, an outstanding example of its kind. I think in a war game that kind of, especially if it does it in one fell swoop, kind of addresses a bunch of nagging issues, problems, drawbacks that players have identified in a particular, let's say, topic, and then a game comes along that kind of, especially in one fell swoop, addresses those, does so in a way that is compelling, basically has all those qualities that Eric W. mentioned about Star Force Alpha Centauri. I think you have a candidate for a timeless war game. Okay. So Eric W. goes on and mentions 2 games that I had not mentioned. So that's Siege of Jerusalem, the Alpha Avalon Hill edition, and Midway, the Avalon Hill game. So there are some interesting nuggets in here. So under Siege of Jerusalem, still fascinates. That seems to be a running theme with timeless games. My favorite Ancients game of all time. Timeless war games tend to, again, and this is the overlap with classic war games. Again, kind of a game that is again widely judged over time to be the best or it doesn't even have to be the best, but either the best or an outstanding example of its kind, may also, it probably is a candidate for a timeless game as well. And here we see that with Siege of Jerusalem, Eric W.'s comments. Midway, hard to believe it, even after so many other games on the same subject. This one still is up there in terms of insight, playability, and entertainment. Now, when you have a game that addresses a subject matter, and then you have many follow-on attempts at the same subject matter, and again, if there's a wide judgment over time that the successors do not, surpass or even equal the predecessor, I think you definitely have a candidate for a timeless war game because that game has set a standard and has not been surpassed. Again, that's a dynamic that we're looking for, I think, when we're talking about timeless war games. Randy Smith here gives some commentary on Circus Maximus, a game that I'm familiar with, but it's about it. But his comments raised the question of if a game is still played after many years, is that by definition a timeless war game? I don't know. Or is it just a popular war game? Or maybe talking about popularity in war games is a whole separate discussion that deserves its own focus. I don't know. That came up in the discussion last night, by the way. What is the relevance of games that are still played after many years, still played at conventions? I mean, some games are widely considered to be, great convention games, competitive games. Is a game that is widely considered to be, a great competitive war game, and so therefore played year after year at conventions, is that by definition a timeless war game? Maybe it is a timeless war game, but not necessarily a classic war game. Sean M. Adds some commentary here. Oh yeah, he's the first one to mention East Front. So let's take a look at his comments in more detail. I think for a war game to be considered timeless, it either has to have mechanics that have not been duplicated in quite the same way since, or to present a unique and tailored approach to a particular historical situation. I want to stop there. The first part about mechanics not duplicated quite the same way since, this also came up in our discussion last night, but there are definitely benchmark games. There are benchmark games. There are groundbreaking games. There are standard-setting games. These are all, not that they're unrelated to timeless, but, well, they may be variations on the theme. Is a benchmark game automatically a timeless game? I don't think so. Is a benchmark game automatically a classic war game? There actually may be quite a bit of overlap there. Okay, so, or present a unique and tailored approach to a particular historical situation. Well, it's interesting consideration. And then in parentheses, he says, I would also suggest that the aesthetics of the game are important. I'm not sure about that, and I think I would want to definitely hear more about that. Because on the face of it, I would think that aesthetics do not qualify as important. But he obviously doesn't elaborate here. He doesn't elaborate here, and I would definitely like to hear more about what he means by that. Looking back on my collection, I don't have many older games that I would consider timeless. I don't think they're, by the way, because, and I'm going to comment on this because Eric W. in discussion seemed to be saying the same thing. I don't think that we would ever have a lot of timeless games. That doesn't mean that we're not playing a lot of old games over and over again. But I think I've already established that that's not by definition timeless. Upfront, a game that would be streamlined somewhat if it were designed today, but still one whose basic chassis has never been bettered. Benchmark game. The few attempts at directly copying the system failed, and the Combat Commander series, which lifted the card play of Upfront, ends up providing a different enough experience not to supplant the older title. The idea of not being supplanted, yes, that points to timeless. Interesting. I don't know much about Upfront firsthand. East Front. Now I know East Front. East Front is one of the oldest games that I actually have, direct play experience with, and I am a huge fan of East Front. Okay, so let's see what he says. Block games have taken off, but they've largely gone in somewhat different directions from East Front. By the way, I completely agree with that. The basic mechanics are all there, but the newer games are stripped down and frequently less substantial. Absolutely, I would think the same thing. I'm thinking the same thing. East Front's headquarters system is a terrific attempt to impose a logistical system on a block game, and again, that's something that you haven't seen later games pick up on. Yeah. Yes. wholeheartedly agree. I have a few other games that I strongly suspect will end up in the timeless category. Napoleon's Triumph comes immediately to mind, but I'll stick with the really old designs that still merit regular play. Now, I gotta say, just as a something to consider, can you have a timeless war game that simply isn't played a lot anymore? Is that a contradiction? All right, I gotta hit this. Blockhead responds to part of what Sean M wrote. Wholeheartedly agree with both choices, referring to East Front and, well, I guess Napoleon's Triumph. East Front is the classic war game for me. Now, right here is where we rather seamlessly drifted into classic, which is why I hit that definition early on, and the other reason being that in the video chat last night, I think we were constantly shifting back and forth between classic and timeless. So very interesting. East Front is the classic war game for me. Really, is this just another way of saying East Front is both a classic war game and a timeless war game? To avoid just listing my favorite games, that's right. We don't want to just do that. We can have lots of favorite games, and it doesn't directly mean anything about timelessness. I'll stick to others that have been around a long time and not surpassed as far as I'm concerned. So again, having not been surpassed, we saw that, I think, in Eric W.'s commentary, right? So I think that there's, I actually agree with the little bit of building consensus here that a timeless war game in some way is also a benchmark game. It sets the bar. And is maybe not easily or maybe never surpassed afterwards. So flat top, this is my favorite scale for carrier warfare. Some like a more zoomed out scale with emphasis on quicker playing, simplified searching, but I want the drama of actually turning into the wind and the plane handling, the rotating planes into cap and refueling whenever you can. Interesting that doesn't tell me, Blockhead doesn't actually tell me in that paragraph why that's a timeless war game. He tells me why it's one of his favorite war games. Napoleon, Waterloo Campaign, 1815, another classic from, another classic from Columbia Games. I know this game too. Different people prefer different editions, but in one form or another, this has been around since 1974, and nothing I've ever played has reflected the historical commander's position so well. That is intriguing. Yeah, I wonder if Napoleon, I don't have the first edition. I have the one that doubled the number of blocks. Anyways, I think this game might be a good contender for a timeless war game. I would ask, because I think there are some people who don't like this game, and I'd like to hear from those who don't like the game why it's not if they believe it's not timeless, why. It's interesting. Pete posts here, it takes the right combination of unexpectedly good quality and the very moment when you're most receptive to it. I remember the first time I played Axis and Allies and D-Day First Edition, not because they were the best games I've ever played, but because on both occasions the games greatly exceeded my expectations and left a lasting impression with me. This is very interesting. First of all, I like the unexpectedly good quality because that links back to our definition that we looked at for a classic war game. Again, an outstanding example of its kind, a best of its kind, so on and so forth. So that links back to that. I like that. And interestingly, greatly exceeding expectations and leaving a lasting impression. A timeless war game. Well, actually, let me back up. Leaving a lasting impression certainly links to a classic war game, and exceeding expectations also links to a classic war game. Now, how did those 2 points overlap or interact with timelessness? I think a timeless war game, probably does leave a lasting impression. Does a timeless war game have to? Well, yeah. Actually, a timeless war game, I think, would tend to both exceed expectations and leave a lasting impression. Yeah. I want to hit Mike O's comment real quickly. TRC and EF are 2 great picks, referring back to Sean M's commentary. Classic, there it is again. Clean designs that don't age. They do what they set out to do and do it almost perfectly. The mark of a timeless design to me. So here, clear overlap between the concept of timeless and classic, which is going to happen, if I remember correctly in this discussion, this is going to come up again and again. Lots of overlap and interaction between the two. However, now I have to ask, can a game be timeless and not be a classic? I actually think that's possible. A game can be unaffected by changing fashion and yet not be, a summit game, not be, the best of its kind, an outstanding example of its kind, and yet still be timeless. Can't some rather straightforward abstract games be timeless, but not necessarily classic? Roger M, I want to hit his quick comment. Replayability, the desire to play it again and again for many years. Again, this sounds intuitive, and yet, are there timeless games that are not being played very much? In other words, are there unrecognized timeless games? Now, that doesn't go with classic games. Classic games are judged over time. So by definition, by definition, there are not. To talk about an unrecognized classic is almost a contradiction in terms. But I'm not sure there's a contradiction in terms when you talk about an unrecognized timeless game. Or an underappreciated timeless game. I think it's actually possible that timeless games could easily be underappreciated. To hit on Super Duper's comments, real quick, World in Flames, note, still the best treatment of its kind. Battle for Germany, ingenious mechanic. And then Midway, 50 years old, doesn't get to the table too often, but certainly a tense affair. First of all, right away, 3 games that qualify as classic war games. But I also want to say, I think now it is easier to see the overlap between classic war game and timeless war game because the repeated play, the ongoing interest and play of World in Flames, Battle for Germany, and Midway suggest their ability to withstand changing fashion. So in that sense, yes, Super Duper, you're making me see now clearer the connection between classic war game and timeless war game, especially in that idea of resisting changing fashion. So despite so many Midway games that have come out after this Midway, that does not keep players returning to the original. For Brady LS, commentary basically referring to always willing to play Commands and Colors Ancients or Napoleonics. I think that links right back to Eric W.'s original idea of I will play this game at the drop of a hat. So this This again speaks to the idea of being resistant to changing fashion. There are many other Napoleonic games you could play, but you're ready to play CNC Napoleonics no matter what. And when enough people basically come to that judgment about a game, and that's kind of overlapping with classic wargame definition, it is certainly a candidate for a timeless wargame. Stephen E. Speaks to, again, the strong nostalgia component that definitely came out in the video chat last night. So it's the good feelings and the memories associated with playing the game. This was in the discussion last night, and I've read through over again several posts in succession here, pointing to the memories, the nostalgia, the experiences, the memorable experiences associated with a game. I am going to, while the nostalgia factor is incredibly important to maybe what makes a wargamer, and it certainly influences one's relationship with war games, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say that this nostalgia component does not make a timeless war game. It's just separate. I'm going to say that because I can imagine having a horrible experience with the same game that you had a wonderful experience with could just wipe out that previous positive experience. I mean, again, I'm not an old-time wargamer, but I've heard from old-time wargamers that, and I know this is very vague, but I'll just say it anyways. I've heard from old-time wargamers that they thought this game, they played this game hundreds of times. It was their grail game and everything until they finally figured out it was broken in some particular way. And then they're if not bitter towards the game, they certainly will never pick that game up again. And they're done with it. They're done with the game because they realized, discovered, whatever, something about the game that they obviously had not seen earlier. And so, yeah, that's all interesting and important for other reasons, but I don't think any of that has to do with a timeless war game per se. Sukunai N mentions a war game is timeless when all others are compared to it. Well, that's certainly a benchmark game. We know that. If it is the bar that is set, it's timeless. I actually like this idea. I don't know, I guess it's a personal predilection on my part to want to bring in that a timeless war game is apt to be the standard that others are compared to. I'm not sure it always works out that way, but I think I'm predisposed to want it to be that way. Without going into specific detail, this post and at least one or two others are pointing to the idea of a timeless feeling, a timeless impression, or an impression of timelessness. I'm not sure what to say about that. Well, yeah, I'm trying to stay away from the feeling, eye of the beholder type idea of timelessness, but I recognize that there's some difficulties in separating out anything from that feeling piece. Now, with reference to Panzer Blitz, and I think I asked this question in the video chat last night, and I think this is at least an interesting question to me. Can a game be hugely influential? Can a game be hugely influential Probably also a benchmark game, and yet not itself be timeless. And I don't see why that can't be. So I guess I leave open the possibility for that. I don't think that just because a game is hugely influential, that it automatically is timeless. Okay, I've enjoyed this, and I only got through the first page. Gave me an opportunity to kind of circle back from starting by throwing out the topic, tuning in a few times over the week to this ongoing discussion, and I'll end on some great humor. Aaron Y. Resistance to mildew. Great stuff.